Evan knew something was wrong the moment he saw the calendar invite disappear from his screen. The meeting he had prepared for all week, the one that was supposed to define his future, was no longer his. He stood up from his desk slowly, heart beating hard, and walked toward the glass-walled boardroom. Inside, executives sat in a neat row, faces serious, eyes focused on the man at the front of the room. Martin Hale, Evan's mentor. The man who had promised to guide him, protect him, and help him grow. Evan stopped walking when he heard Martin's voice. Calm, confident, familiar. Martin was presenting Evan's project, not parts of it. The ideas, the strategy, even the phrases Evan had written late at night while the city slept. Evan felt the floor steady beneath him, but everything inside him tilted. Applause filled the room when Martin finished. Evan didn't hear. Every clap, his ears rang. His hands felt cold. He searched Martin's face for any sign of guilt, confusion, hesitation. There was nothing. Martin smiled, nodded, accepted praise like it belonged to him. Evan waited for eye contact, for a signal that this was some misunderstanding. It never came when the meeting ended and the executives filed out. Martin walked past Evan without stopping. He didn't speak. He didn't look back. That silence was louder than any confession. Evan returned to his desk and sat down, staring at the screen without seeing it. Round him, coworkers typed and talked, unaware that something had broken. 2 years of work replayed in his mind in sharp flashes. Long nights, missed weekends, canceled plans. He remembered defending Martin when others said he took too much credit. He remembered believing loyalty mattered. Now he understood how wrong. He had been trust was useful until it wasn't. By the end of the day, an email arrived. Short, polite, cold. Evan was being reassigned to a support role. His project was now under Martin's leadership. There was a line thanking him for his contribution. Evan read it once, then again, his jaw tightened. This wasn't a mistake. It was planned, carefully, quietly. Martin had waited for the right moment and taken everything. Evan left the office after dark. The city lights reflected on wet streets, blurred by rain. He walked without direction, his thoughts moving faster than his steps. Anger came in waves, but beneath it was something heavier. Betrayal didn't scream. It settled. It pressed down on his chest and made every breath feel deliberate. He thought of calling someone, but he didn't know what he would say. How do you explain that the person you trusted most had erased you? That night, sleep didn't come easily. Evan lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation he had ever had with Martin. Every compliment now felt false. Every promise felt hollow. He wondered when it had started. Had Martin planned this from the beginning, or had something changed along the way? The question didn't bring comfort. It only made the betrayal feel deeper. The next morning, Evan returned to work early. Habit guided him. Purpose did not. He noticed how people spoke to him differently, quieter, shorter. Some avoided his eyes. Others offered small smiles filled with pity. News traveled fast in offices like this. Everyone knew, even if no one said it out loud. Evan had been replaced. Martin sent a message later that day asking to talk. Evan stared at it for a long moment before agreeing. They met in a small conference room. Martin closed the door gently, as if this were a normal conversation between friends. He spoke about pressure, about expectations, about how leadership required difficult choices. He said Evan was talented. He said this was nothing personal. Evan listened without interrupting, his face calm, his hands steady. Inside, something burned. When Martin finished, Evan asked one question. "Did you ever plan to give me credit?" Martin paused, just for a second. Then he smiled and said, "Things change." That was all Evan needed to hear. From that moment, a new thought took root. It was quiet at first, almost reasonable. If Martin could take without consequence, then the system was broken. Evan had followed the rules and lost. Martin had broken them and won. The unfairness of it pressed against. Evan's sense of self. He didn't want applause, wanted balance. He wanted the truth to matter. Days passed. Evan did his new work without complaint. On the surface, he accepted his place. Inside, his mind worked constantly. He remembered details others forgot: files, emails, timelines. He knew where the truth lived, hidden behind polished reports and confident speeches. He told himself he was just thinking, just considering options. But the idea of revenge began to take shape. It wasn't about rage. It was about control. It's about restoring something that had been taken. Evan imagined exposing Martin, watching his certainty crack. The thought brought a sharp sense of relief, followed by doubt. What would that make him? Would he become the same kind of person he now despised? At home, Evan found himself distant. Food tasted bland. Music annoyed him. Conversations felt slow. His life had narrowed to one point of focus. The betrayal replayed itself in his mind, always ending the same way, always unresolved. He realized how deeply it had affected him, not just professionally, but personally. His confidence had been shaken, his sense of worth questioned. Still, he moved forward each day, outwardly calm, inwardly restless. He began to understand that betrayal doesn't just take what you've built, it changes how you see the world. It teaches you caution. It teaches you anger.
Okay.
And sometimes it teaches you how close justice and revenge can feel. As Evan walked into the office one evening, long after most had left, he paused at the door. The lights hummed softly. The space felt empty, but charged. He knew this was only the beginning. The damage had been done. What came next would depend on the choices he made from this moment on. And those choices would shape not just Martin's future, but his own. It did not shout or break things. It sat with him during meetings, followed him home, and waited beside his bed at night. He did his work well, better than expected, because failure would give Martin another. Each task became a test of control. Each day became a lesson in patience. He watched Martin closely, not openly, not with obvious resentment. He observed from a distance, noticing patterns others ignored. He praised loyalty while guarding his own position. People admired him. That admiration made Evan's chest tighten. It felt like watching a lie grow stronger. Evan began staying late again, but now for a different reason. After hours, the office felt honest. No performances, no applause, just quiet halls and glowing screens. He accessed old folders, project drafts, archived messages. He did not steal, he copied. Dates, revisions, approvals. It's a clear trail that told the real story. This was proof. This was power. At first, collecting it felt right, like restoring order. But as the folder grew, so did something else. A sharp focus that pushed everything aside. Evan stopped calling friends back. He skipped meals without noticing. His thoughts stayed locked on one outcome. The more prepared he became, the less human he felt. Revenge narrowed his world. Martin, meanwhile, flourished. He was invited to speak at events. His name appeared in newsletters. His people laughed at. Evan listened from the edges, learning how easily confidence could hide truth. He wondered if Martin ever felt uneasy, if guilt visited him late at night. The answer didn't matter. The damage was already done. One evening, Evan overheard two co-workers talking about Martin's leadership. They spoke with admiration, calling him inspiring, calling him fair. Evan walked past them without stopping, his face calm, his hands shaking. He realized then how dangerous silence could be. Lies survived because truth stayed quiet. That night, Evan opened his folder again. He read through the evidence slowly. It was clear, undeniable. One message in particular stood out. Martin thanking him for the final version of the project, sent weeks before the presentation. Simple. Words, honest. Proof that credit had been taken knowingly. Evan closed his laptop and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. This could end everything, but endings were never simple. As days turned into weeks, Evan felt pulled in two directions. One part of him wanted justice, clean, final. The other part feared the cost. He imagined the fallout, whispers, accusations, meetings behind closed doors. Even if he won, something would be lost. Careers rarely survive storms like this untouched. He began to question his own motives. Was he seeking fairness or satisfaction? Would exposing Martin heal the wound or deepen it? The line between right and revenge blurred until he wasn't sure where he stood anymore. Martin called him into his office one afternoon. The room was bright, the view impressive. Martin spoke warmly, as if nothing had changed. You talked about future opportunities, about growth, about patience. Evan listened, nodding when expected. Every word felt rehearsed. When Evan mentioned his past contribution, Martin smiled and said success was always a team effort. The conversation ended with a handshake. Evan's grip was firm, controlled. Walking away, Evan felt something shift. The anger sharpened. Martin wasn't afraid. He didn't expect consequences. Made the choice feel urgent. Silence was no longer neutral. It was permission. Evan began planning carefully, not in anger, but with precision. He considered timing, audience, impact. He wanted the truth to matter, not just explode. Each decision carried weight. Each step forward felt like crossing an invisible line. Still, doubt followed him. Late at night, when the city went quiet, Evan wondered who he would become after this. Would revenge free him or trap him in the moment of betrayal forever? He imagined waking up the day after, the tension gone. Would there be relief or emptiness? The pressure built as an investor review approached. Martin would speak. The project would be praised again. The lie would grow. Evan felt time closing in. The moment to act was coming, whether he was ready or not. On the morning of the event, Evan dressed carefully, simple, neutral. He looked at his reflection and barely recognized himself. He seemed older, sharper, focused in a way that felt unfamiliar. He placed the evidence on a drive and slipped it into his pocket. The weight of it was real. At the venue, lights shone brightly. Voices echoed. Martin moved through the crowd with ease, shaking hands, smiling. Evan watched from the side, unseen. His heart beat steadily, not fast, not slow. This was the calm, before a choice. As Martin stepped onto the stage, Evan felt the pull of two futures. One where he spoke out and burned everything down. Another where he walked away and carried the truth alone. Both demanded courage. Both carried loss. The folder in his pocket pressed against his leg, a reminder of what he held and what it could do. Evan took a breath and stepped forward, not toward the stage, but toward the edge of the room. He needed one final moment to decide who he was going to be. Evan stood near the exit as Martin began to speak. The room quieted. Lights focused on the stage. Applause followed Martin's first words, warm and confident. Evan felt a familiar pull in his chest, but it was different now, calmer, sharper. The moment he had imagined so many times was finally here, and it did not feel the way he expected. Martin talked about vision, about trust, about building something lasting. Each sentence landed clean and smooth. Evan watched the crowd lean in, believing every word. He could end it all with a single step forward. The proof was in his pocket. The truth was ready. As Martin spoke, Evan's mind drifted. Not to anger, but to memory. He remembered his first day at the company, how nervous he had been. He remembered Martin offering guidance, telling him he had potential. Those moments were real once, or at least they felt real. That made the betrayal hurt more, but it also made Evan pause. Destroying Martin would not erase the past. It would only add another ending. The applause rose again. Evan looked down at his hands. They were steady. That surprised him. He realized he was no longer driven by rage. He was driven by clarity. He did not want noise. He wanted truth to land where it mattered. He stepped away from the crowd and moved toward a side corridor, pulling out his phone. With a few taps, he sent the files to the board members directly. No drama, no stage. Just facts, clean and organized. The message was short, respectful, final. When he pressed send, a weight lifted from his chest. Evan slipped the drive back into his pocket and left the venue before the applause faded. Outside, the night air felt cool and honest. For the first time in months, he took a deep breath without effort. He did not wait to see what would happen next. He had done his part. The days that followed were quiet at first. No announcements. No sudden changes. Evan returned to work and focused on his tasks. He slept better. He ate properly. His thoughts slowly widened beyond the moment of betrayal. Whatever happened next was out of his hands. Then meetings started appearing on calendars. Private ones. Board-only ones. Martin's schedule changed. His door stayed closed more often. His smile, when it appeared, looked forced. People noticed. Whispers returned, this time cautious and uncertain. One afternoon, Evan was asked to meet with a senior executive. The conversation was brief, calm, respectful. Evan was thanked for his honesty and patience. No accusations were thrown. No emotions raised, just acknowledgement. The truth had been confirmed. Martin resigned a week later. There was no public scandal, no dramatic exit. It's just a short message announcing his departure to pursue other opportunities. Some people were surprised, others were not. Life at the company moved on, as it always did. Evan watched it all from a distance. He felt no joy in Martin's fall, no victory, only a quiet sense of closure. The urge for revenge had faded, replaced by something steadier. Balance had been restored, not through destruction, but through restraint. Soon after, Evan was offered a chance to transfer to a new team, a clean start. New leadership, new space to grow. He accepted without hesitation. On his last day with the old team, he packed his desk slowly. Each item felt lighter than the last. As he walked out of the building that evening, Evan realized how much the betrayal had changed him. It had tested his values, narrowed his world, and tempted him toward something dark. But it had also shown him who he wanted to be. Someone who did not let anger decide his future. Revenge had promised satisfaction, but it demanded too much in return. Letting go had cost him less than he feared. The pain did not vanish, but it no longer controlled him. Weeks later, settled into his new role, Evan felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: peace. It was quiet and unremarkable, but real. He understood now that justice did not always need an audience. Sometimes the strongest choice was the one made without applause. Looking back, Evan knew the betrayal would always be part of his story, but it was no longer the ending. It was the turning point that taught him the true cost of revenge and the unexpected strength found in choosing a different path.